So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that thorough introduction. Decades old at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I don't feel that old yet, but here we are. So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Embassy of the Kingdom of Morocco, allow me to express our thanks for inviting us to take part in this forum. It is a great honor to address you today on a subject that lies at the heart of Morocco's foreign policy and international engagement: the role of cultural diplomacy in the promotion of peace. For Morocco, culture is not an accessory to diplomacy. It is a strategic choice. At the crossroads of Africa, Europe, and the Arab world, Morocco has for centuries been a land of convergence. As enshrined in the preamble of our 2011 Constitution, and I quote, "Morocco is forged by the convergence of its Arab Islamic, Berber, and Saharan Hassanic components, nourished and enriched in its African, Andalusian, Hebraic, and Mediterranean influences," end of quote. This cultural plurality is not only part of our heritage, it is the basis of our Moroccan identity. Under the leadership of His Majesty the King Mohammed VI, Morocco has elevated culture as a cornerstone of its diplomatic outreach, complementing political, economic, and security efforts. His Majesty the King has constantly emphasized that culture, tangible and intangible, is a powerful tool to defend peace, nurture coexistence, and strengthen democratic values. This is not symbolic, but rather a national orientation for us. Morocco has always made the choice to turn outwards, using its unique heritage to build trust and partnerships. An example of this cultural openness is the historic visit of the late Pope Francis to Morocco in March 2019. During the visit, the Pope addressed thousands in Rabat, sending a message of interfaith dialogue, mutual respect, and the shared responsibility for Christians, Muslims, and Jews in building peace. This moment was not only a milestone in Morocco's history, it was a clear demonstration of how culture and spiritual diplomacy can overcome divisions and inspire unity. This commitment to dialogue and openness is not confined to religion and spirituality. It is also deeply anchored in Morocco's history, architecture, and cultural heritage. Just as Morocco has become a platform for interfaith understanding, it also stands as a guardian for civilizations. The preservation of our monuments, cities, and traditions is not only about safeguarding the past, but it is rather also about offering the world examples of coexistence, creativity, and resilience over time. Today, Morocco hosts 9 UNESCO World Heritage Sites: the Medinas of Fez, Marrakesh and Tétouan, and Essaouira, the historic cities of Meknès and Rabat, the archaeological sites of Volubilis in Meknès, the Qasr of Ait bin Haddou, and the Portuguese city of Mazagan in El Jadida. These sites are a reminder that Morocco has been a hub of coexistence and creativity for centuries. Through their preservation, Morocco demonstrates that heritage is not merely about the physical, but also about keeping alive the values and identities that connect people not only across time, but space as well. Keeping in the traditions of his forefathers, His Majesty the King has launched major initiatives to make culture a vehicle of social and political development. First, we have the rehabilitation of historic medinas, which revitalizes not only the communities, but creates jobs and strengthens the social fabric. We also have the restoration of Jewish heritage, including synagogues, cemeteries, and archives, such as the Beit Dakira, which is a museum dedicated to Jewish Moroccan heritage. All of this is just a reflection of Morocco's plural identity. His Majesty the King, as commander of the faithful, is the protector of all Moroccans: Muslims, Christians, and Jews. The Mohammed VI Foundation for African Scholars fosters a religious diplomacy rooted in moderation and tolerance. It helps counter extremism and promote stability across Africa. Through cultural festivals such as the Festival of Sacred Music in Fez, which is renowned for its spiritual and cultural music festival. We also have the Gnawa Festival of Essaouira, which showcases the Afro music culture of Morocco to the world. And we also have the Mawazin Music Festival, which is a global gathering to promote world music. We also have Marrakesh International Film Festivals. These are just a few examples that I'm citing, but in total, we have more than 20 official festivals organized every year by the Ministry of Culture in Morocco. So that's more than 1.5 festivals a month per year. But moving on to the international stage, Morocco has consistently positioned itself as a bridge builder between cultures and civilizations, bridging Africa, Europe, and the Arab world. We have the Mohammed VI Institute for the Training of Imams, Murshidats, and Murshidins, which are the equivalent of Muslim preachers, in Rabat, which has played a central role in this effort, having trained thousands of religious leaders, not only from Africa, but also in Europe, in promoting values of moderation, tolerance, and peaceful coexistence. Beyond religious education, Morocco also actively supports and hosts UNESCO events and multilateral conferences, reinforcing Rabat and Marrakesh as a vibrant center for intercultural dialogue and global exchange. In addition, we also have our South-South Cooperation Initiative. Morocco works very closely with African universities, language centers, and cultural programs, fostering shared development, knowledge exchange, and conditional solidarity. Together, all these initiatives that I've just expressed highlight Morocco's strategic role in fostering understanding, collaboration, and partnership across the region and beyond. So, Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen, culture is more than a reflection of the past. It is also a compass for our future. And Morocco's heritage, traditions, and commitment to dialogue show that understanding and celebrating one's identity is the first step towards connecting with the world. This lesson is simple but very powerful. When we embrace our culture and share it openly, we build bridges of understanding, cooperation, and respect. Heritage, art, and tradition are not just local treasures, they are actually global tools that remind us of our shared humanity. Thank you very much.
The tangible cultural heritage from your country, like from my tribe in Cameroon, the Ngonso is one of the most renowned cultural heritage, and from the 1960s, it has been in Germany. So I think none of my age group, they know it in person, but it is here in the museum in Germany. How is the culture being balanced when we don't have what is being sold outside? So I don't know whether we need to take it back to promote our culture, or it should be here for more visibility. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I think that's very... Our continent has suffered a lot post-colonialism in terms of, I don't want to say cultural appropriation because it's not that, but certain artifacts have been moved, tangible, misplaced, certain. And I think post-colonialism, a lot of effort has been done to track down those artifacts. And I think the most important part for countries that have experienced such a certain kind of detachment from their cultural heritage is just to continue enshrining that into their generations. Education is one thing. We have a culture of storytelling in Africa, and that's something that has been used for several generations, and that's something I think we should keep doing, whether those tangible material things still remain or not. The origin, the creation behind it is still Cameroon. So that is something that needs to be continued to be transmitted. Tangible or intangible, yes, it's unfortunate certain artifacts have to find themselves that don't belong into your country, that they're part of your identity. But I think we shouldn't forget that the creation came from Cameroon, from the country of origin. And again, it's up to certain governments how they want to proceed with whether they want to, regain back their artifacts, or it could also be an example of how you represent yourself in the world. If certain, artifacts are present in European countries, as long as there's an acknowledgement of where it's coming from and the history behind it, there can be some silver lining, if you want, to not having tangible goods in your country but based overseas.
You gave a very positive and self-confident image of how cultural diplomacy works from a representative who proactively promotes the visibility of Moroccan culture. do you see anything like challenges or threats to what you like to communicate? Because if a country opens and you allow a lot of foreign direct investment and tourism and access to telecommunication services to enter your country, it also means that all of these services and goods contain cultural elements. They either destroy local supply chains or replace products that have been traditional expressions of your culture, and now they are replaced by imports or whatever. You also have different lifestyles and different whatever customs. All of this can either be embraced as modernization and people adapt to different forms of making use of their individual freedoms, or you consider it a threat to a tradition and a potential loss of what has been something like historical treasure. Is this a debate about everyone embraces something like progression and we become a modern version of what is no longer 20th century, 19th century version of this old kingdom? Or is there an internal conflict about what kind of culture do we want to promote, or what kind of storytelling is actually what you do when you communicate to Germany what Morocco is?
I think we're in the 21st century. No country is immune to globalization. Internet communication barriers are completely shattered. The youth, and I mean, it's crazy and impressive also, and mind-blowing to see how rapidly, boundaries are being shattered, but then, the mass influx of new traditions, new cultures, new point of views. I'll just, on a little anecdote, I'm Moroccan. My parents put me in an American school, so I've been in an American system since the age of 5. I was not put in a Moroccan school. I was not put in the French system. I was put in an American system, and at the time, was not very common. So a lot of the backlash that my parents got were, oh my God, it's an American school. They don't understand our way. We don't know anything about the American system. Like, how are you sure that this school is not gonna, justement, ruin your kids' Moroccan identity and Moroccan culture? Well, it didn't. I am proudly a servant for my government, and no, but I think that my parents have been very adamant about tradition, and I think that's the key word. It's tradition versus culture. The culture will always remain. Traditions will change. The traditions evolve with generation to generation. For example, my parents' traditions, what they tried to transmit to me, I was able to internalize that with my experience growing up in the American school, and then my interaction with international students, and traveling and seeing the world. I've been able to internalize that, and now I have my set of traditions that I hope to pass on to my kids as well. So, but the culture remains the same, and I think what Morocco is also doing that's very commendable is enshrining that into institutions, national institutions. We have the, Cultural World Heritage, the UNESCO sites. We have ministry that promotes only craftsmanship, which is Moroccan leatherwork, the zelig, the tiles, the traditional craftsmanship. There was a time when we were losing the handicraft people, because that was something that was not promoted much or given much attention, especially with, again, like the technology and new machines and new ways of doing things and working things. Like you're not going to spend a year working on a beautiful mural made of tiles when you've got machines now that can do it for you in 2-3 months. But we were adamant about investing and preserving that tradition and that culture for us. So now we have an institute that teaches that craft for younger generations, and it's institutionalized. So I think the key to not losing the authenticity is the institutionalizing of certain things that will be kept from generation to generation to generation. But we're not immune to globalization. And again, like our history did not come and just, Morocco did not wake up and became African, Andalusian, Mediterranean. It was through our history and time that we gained a certain African that we gained the African element into our history. It was, again, through time and history and events and through generations that we gained that Andalusian touch, or that we gained that, the Arab touch. So I think further down the line, we'll be able to perhaps enrich Morocco's cultural identity with certain touch of what we may know now as, or what we call globalism. But I think, and it's also, I think, a two-way street. Yes, it's an influx of coming in, but it's also an influx of us coming out. So I think that's something that we should keep in mind, and it's definitely a challenge to be able to get younger generations to not completely lose touch with who they are. But again, that's the effort of the state, of the household, and it's an effort. But I don't think we'll be able to lose it. It will just be transformed, and it will become something that will enrich our identity further down the line in many, many, many years, hopefully. Thank you.
The timekeeper says that's it, because I've seen more questions, but someone has to end the lively conversation. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and being an ambassador of your country, because it's one thing to learn what we think Morocco is, but experiencing it face to face, because that's a perfect example of a cultural form of representing Morocco that wouldn't have existed 100 or 200 years ago, which shows that culture doesn't stand still and transforms and has different expressions. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.